y todas. Mi nombre es Alejandro Insunza de Simnetics. En esta ocasión estamos con dos invitados. Les quiero presentar primero que nada a Whitney Dailey. Ella es vicepresidenta de Novelli. Tiene experiencia en temas de propósito, responsabilidad social empresarial e impacto social. Ella es MBA en gestión ambiental y espíritu empresarial de la Universidad de Massachusetts, Boston, y es licenciada en administración de empresas de la Universidad George Washington. También es profesora invitada en las universidades de Harvard, Boston College, Boston University y Simon's College. Welcome, Whitney.
Thank you.
También está con nosotros Ravi Sunnak. Ravi es vicepresidente también en Novelli y trabaja en temas que tienen que ver con metas de desarrollo sostenible. Él tiene 20 años de experiencia en comunicaciones con clientes a nivel global para desarrollar y construir iniciativas de impacto social exitosas. Solo un par de datos, por favor vayan haciendo sus preguntas ahí donde está el Q&A, y también hay una interpretación que ustedes pueden elegir el idioma en inglés, español o portugués. A continuación los dejo con Whitney y Ravi, que nos van a presentar respecto del activismo de los CEOs, cómo liderar con propósitos más allá del 2021. Thank you very much, Whitney and Ravi. Here you have.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. We'd just like to start off just saying, we're very grateful to be able to present to you today. We are certainly living in very interesting times. Myself and Whitney are US-based, and I'm sure you've all been following the recent news. 2020 has been a fascinating and very interesting year, especially when it comes to purpose in leadership. Before I dive in, I've done a lot of work. Myself and Whitney have both done a lot of work in executive visibility and executive visibility research. And us as Novelli, we are a global purpose communications agency focused on executive visibility, thought leadership for a number of clients across the for-profit and non-profit sector. So for the last decade or so, we have been following the evolution of purpose in leadership at very close quarters. Let me first talk a little bit about Novelli, and we have a few slides to share with you. Just, Alejandro, is it possible, would you like us to put the slide deck on, or would your team like to drive the slide deck?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay, let me start and share my screen. So great, fantastic. So today we'll be talking about our insights into executive leadership, so how to lead with purpose in 2021 and beyond. I will give some background and talk about the evolution of purpose in leadership when it comes to CEOs and CEO action. And my colleague Whitney will talk about some of the latest research we have done in executive leadership. And then we'll have a few moments at the end to for Q&A. So Whitney, let's go through the next slide. So you've seen us, our introductions. It's great to be here today. And we'll go to the next slide. So Novelli, as I mentioned, we're a global communications agency. Now, aside from blowing our own trumpet, this slide really shows how steeped we are in purpose and leadership. We've won multiple awards for purpose, diversity and inclusion, for award-winning campaigns that really seek to influence human behavior when it comes to change. And also, we are very focused on impact. Next slide, please, Whitney. We've been doing purpose for about 45 plus years. Our founders, Jack Porter and Bill Novelli, when they set up this agency, they wanted to ensure that there was purpose at the heart of communications. So purpose and leadership and CEO activism is nothing new for us. We've been doing this for 40 plus years, and we really seek to ensure that our clients make a deep impact on society. Next slide, please, Whitney. We're a global agency, so we work very closely with our colleagues in Chile and Brazil and the rest of LATAM, but we're really all around the world, across 60 countries, 90 offices. spanning every continent. So before I go into purpose today and tomorrow, let me talk about purpose yesterday. Next slide, please, Whitney. So we're going to start off by talking about the evolution of purpose and leadership. Then I'll go into the rise of CEO activism. I'll talk about the obvious, the COVID-19 effect, and also touch upon the evolution of philanthropy. So let's first talk about the evolution in purpose in leadership. Next slide, please. For about a decade now, there were only, or this has been going on for about a decade, and a decade ago, there were only a few well-known brands that really combined the race for profits with the responsibility of purpose. For example, we had brands like Ben & Jerry's and Patagonia, but there's only really those two, and they are still currently seen as being the standard bearers of purpose in leadership. Then we saw many other brands really following suit, and they soon realized that purpose was not just philanthropy, but it's a source of competitive advantage. And there have been a number of studies out there to prove that point. And today, most experts agree that just having products and services is not enough. You need to combine that with being a very good corporate citizen. And so as now consumers, employees, potential consumers, potential employees get more empowered, they're more interested in seeing how brands and brands leadership act in regard to societal justice issues. And so now, today in 2020, so much is expected of brands. Companies have evolved from championing well-supported, non-partisan issues like empowerment and inclusion to making their positions very well known on potentially polarizing topics like gay rights and gun control, because this is what consumers and employees exactly want. The next slide, talking about the rise of CEO activism. So people now want CEOs of large companies to use their positions to influence social and political and environmental issues. The expectation has moved way beyond some of these few brave brands like Patagonia, but has now moved more into the mainstream. You know, brands and leaders now aren't afraid to court and confront some controversy. So we've seen the rise of this trend of CEO activism. It's really becoming more commonplace today. And most experts have agreed that a divisive political climate in the US and also other countries has compelled CEOs to take action, has compelled CEOs to take a decision on certain issues and to increase their influence to their employees and to their customer base. There's a number of examples. We've seen Apple's Tim Cook, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, but also some brands are starting to get into trouble by not playing the social justice issue correct or right. In 2019, SoulCycle and Equinox got caught up in cancel culture because they only intended to do a fundraiser for President Trump, and that received a number of negative headlines. And then let's talk about the COVID-19 effect. Well, it's an interesting time we're living in, as I said, and certainly the global pandemic has tested the character, resilience, and flexibility of many of the world's citizens. But this once-in-a-century event is really reshaping how and where we work, what we buy, how we spend our time, and what we value the most. From a business perspective, the pandemic is an epic leadership test on which the actions and words of the corporate CEO is open to even more attention and scrutiny. So we've seen business leaders around the world having to adapt, whether it's managing teams from lockdown, reimagining business models, or creating new programs to protect employees. I think now more than ever, a CEO needs to find their voice in such a climate. And we've certainly seen in the clients that we look after, the demand to have a more robust and more authentic positioning. Whitney's going to talk about some of our research in a moment and go into a little bit more detail around what this means and how this translated into real impact. And then let me finish off by talking about philanthropy. So we've seen, even when it comes to philanthropists, a new activist model. So philanthropists are no longer just signing checks over, for various initiatives, they want to take real action. They want to do more. They want to take more robust stance on certain issues. So you've seen this rise from billionaire philanthropy to philanthro activism. Okay, so let's go into some of our Porter Novelli insights into executive research.
So just to set the stage, and thank you, Ravi, a little bit for the research I'm going to share today. Porter Novelli has been conducting the business case for responsible business dating back to 1993. So we've been looking at this space for a long time. We've seen how consumer expectations have really evolved over time. And now we face, as Ravi has mentioned, unprecedented times and the influx of the COVID-19 effect. We at Porter Novelli have been doing biweekly trackers to understand how the global pandemic, racial unrest, and economic uncertainty has really affected the purpose marketplace. And in September, we took a detailed look at the executive landscape and how executives were reacting to the marketplace that they were now in. So the study we conducted was of 150 executives at companies with revenues of 500 million and more, to really understand what those executives at the very top of business today were feeling in terms of the landscape that we find ourselves in today. So first, let's dig in on that personal onus. How are executives feeling personally about the roles that they have in society and how they can use them to make change? And what we're seeing is that overwhelmingly, executives do feel that their personal roles in C-suite, that they can make a difference with those. 83% of executives say they want to use their role as business leaders to make an impact on issues they care about. And more so, almost 3/4, 74%, say that they also feel a responsibility to hold their peers accountable for addressing social justice issues. So what we're seeing is, yes, they feel that personal accountability, but they're also looking to use their platform to influence other peers in their space. And we've certainly seen this if you look at examples of Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, pushing other executives in the tech space to address gender parity in the payroll. So more than this, there is this sense of urgency going back to the COVID effect that Ravi mentioned earlier. There's certainly the sense of urgency that's showing through the research. Nearly 3/4 of executives feel more empowered than ever before to use their role to address pressing issues. And in fact, nearly the same amount say in their entire careers, they've never felt more pressure to as a business leader, respond to these issues. So again, that sense of urgency, that fever pitch that we're experiencing, executives are feeling too. And again, as we've been tracking this build up over time, we're now at a new level, a new playing field for that executive urgency. So they're really feeling not only a moral mandate, but also a business mandate. So again, let's talk about the environment that we're in today and how our current environment is affecting business perspectives here. So what we're seeing, again, is that sense of urgency. They're feeling the urgency, 83%, for business to be a critical part of driving solutions for today's most pressing issues. They really feel that business has the opportunity and the time to lead today. I mean, they understand that business brings something new to the table, right? Business has the scale, the speed, the acumen to really solve for these pressing issues. So they understand that business really brings that unique acumen to the table that might be lacking in other areas right now. And more than that, business executives are sensing a leadership vacuum in other areas that they think the business world can come in and fill. 80% believe business has more of a role than ever before to address these issues, especially what we're seeing in the US due to lack of government regulation and progress. But there's this gap and this opportunity. 92% of executives think that today, this heightened expectations from consumers also creates an opportunity to bolster trust. So again, businesses are heeding the call. They know they have the scale, the speed, the acumen. They feel the sense of responsibility. They see an opening gap that business can come in and fill right now around these urgent issues. But there's also an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to create a better relationship with consumers that can really influence in the long term that relationship between business and a myriad of different stakeholders. So I'll end with a couple stats on the state of purpose today. So again, we've been tracking this for a long time. How is the current environment influencing how executives are really pursuing purpose within their own organizations? And what we're seeing is that this essence of stakeholder first business, this essence of purpose is quite high. And I will say that these numbers that you see on the screen here are reflective of what we've seen when we've surveyed and asked these questions to other stakeholders, including consumers and employees and investors. 91% of business executives today believe purpose is that business must benefit all stakeholders, not just shareholders alone. So business executives, I think this is an astounding number. The majority of business executives today say, yes, we understand we're here to make money, but it's more than that. We must influence and benefit these other stakeholders, including employees, our communities that we operate in, and other important stakeholders. It's not just about the shareholder or the stockholder. And again, we're seeing the sense of urgency come through here, 88% saying now more than ever, companies must lead with purpose. But we're seeing this, again, in this last data point, it's about more than making money. It's positively impacting society. I think we really drilled that home on this slide here, that business executives understand this just as reflective as other audiences that we've looked at. But this is, again, more than a moral imperative. It's also a very strong business strategy, and executives recognize that. And I'll close with a few data points that really show that coming through in the minds of the executives that we surveyed. So 89% say that businesses that lead with purpose, they have that competitive advantage in the marketplace. It's a point of differentiation. It's a platform. It's a marketing strategy. It's a employee recruitment strategy. It's a license to operate strategy. There's a number of reasons why purpose creates competitive advantage, and business executives understand that. More so, 85% say that, yes, purpose-driven companies drive profits. So getting to that mind of your CFO, here we have the numbers that say, yes, purpose equals profit. And executives understand that that's really a sound strategy. But business executives today also understand there's myriad benefits in pursuing purpose beyond just making money or it's a moral imperative. Look at these numbers, very high across the board. They see a reputational benefit in leading with purpose. They see benefits in terms of employee recruitment and retention. I'll pause there because our employee research also shows beyond recruitment and retention that purpose can actually influence productivity, feeling good about coming to work, feeling inspired, and recommending your company to others. But let's run down the list a little bit further. We're seeing increased consumer trust and loyalty. Again, we're seeing that play out on our consumer research side. That is a number that has stayed consistently high over the time that we've done our trackers. Likelihood to purchase, recommend, again, that differentiation. And we see financial performance and license to operate here wrapping out our list. So again, what I want to drive home here is that executives are really understanding that there are a number of really, really strong business reasons to lead with purpose. And that sense of urgency that they're seeing in the marketplace is really a moment where we're seeing companies double down on this, executives personally doubling down on purpose, which is certainly reflective of some of the insights that Ravi has shared earlier today. And with that, I'll kick it off to Ravi to kind of close it out and we can open up for any questions that you may have.
Sure. So I think the key takeaway is that business and purpose is nothing new. CEO activism is nothing new. But 2020 has accelerated all of this to the front of mind due to the global pandemic and the certain societal justice issues that have impacted not just the US, but the world as a whole. So I think when we go into 2021, we should stop using the word new normal. We should just call it the normal, right? There's a new sense of urgency facing all of us today. And as business leaders, the onus is on you to take a stand. So CEOs should continue to be proactive about taking stands on social justice issues, because today's consumers are significantly more likely to let their values and their beliefs drive their purchases and their general habits of support. But that also applies to potential employees. So the key is to doing it the right way, right? So not just doing it for doing its sake, but being authentic about it. Pick an authentic cause. If there's a sense of urgency that really appeals to your employees, lean into that. Be more transparent and be more bold when it comes to taking a stand on certain issues. But ensure this all ladders up to your corporate narrative. This isn't a vanity project for a particular business leader. This really does deliver real and true impact on society as a whole. So I know we've gone through a lot in a very short period of time, but we're happy to answer any questions. And of course, if anyone wants any follow-up, we're happy to be connected directly to talk more about the trends of CEO activism and purpose in leadership and how business leaders can shape 2021 and beyond, or to go into a deeper dive on any of the research points that my colleague Whitney has delivered today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ravi and Whitney. Very good presentation. And actually, I agree with you 100% that this is more important, or the pandemic accelerated these issues. Particularly in Chile, we are living a social crisis since 2019. And of course, this accelerated this trend. I would like to make a first question. We have some questions here. The first question is, in terms of purpose, how much is a matter of design and how much is a matter of executing the purpose? You know, that all of people be engaged with the purpose.
Whitney, I can jump in and answer that question. Sure. Feel free to add to it. We actually have a process at Novelli, and I don't want to plug, but I think this process applies across the board, right? It's about finding your purpose, living your purpose, and telling your purpose. The finding part, you need to do a deep dive to your organization's aims and objectives. You need to look at your true north, your mission and your vision. And you need to find something that resonates both internally and externally. It's so important as a business leader to kind of motivate and engage your employee workforce, because without that, it's not going to be authentic to the mission and vision of the company. You're going to find it very difficult to get everyone behind a certain part of purpose. And, you know, as part of that process as well, and Whitney's the head of research and insights here, but, you know, you need to do your research. You should kind of ascertain some insights to help bolster up that positioning. It needs to be values driven. It needs to have buy-in from your workforce, from your employee workforce. It needs to resonate with your consumers. You can't just do one of these things in isolation. It can't just be one person at board level trying to focus on a certain issue or positioning. Otherwise, it's going to fall flat on its face. It's not going to come true, right? And it's going to impact on your bottom line because your consumers are going to see through that. They're not going to be attracted to what you're trying to do, and they'll soon see through, you know, that lack of authenticity.
Yeah, and just from a research perspective, this certainly plays out in what we're seeing. More than 3/4 of consumers will say that they will stop buying from a brand if they think that that brand is being inauthentic. So again, you know, we've heard of purpose washing. It's a real thing, but especially in today's society with the access to data online and also the platform of social media, it's more important than ever to really nail that find and the live. So the strategy and the activation before you get to the communications part. Otherwise, not only will consumers call you out, we're seeing more and more employees calling out their own company for not being authentic there.
Thank you. I have another question here. How these new variables, I don't know if new, impact, or how do you mix with the strategy, considering that these kind of variables, at least here in South America, you know, we are at this time presenting or organizing this summit between Brazil and Synthetic Brazil and Chile, at least. these kind of variables were not considered up to a few times ago. So how do you mix with the strategy?
So I think it's kind of become commonplace now when we work with CEOs or we work with the broader team, the board or the marketing team or the communications team, we ensure everything goes through a purpose lens, right? Whether that's diversity and inclusion, gun control, LGBTQ rights. That's not to say the company or the CEO need to have an answer for every one of these purpose-driven issues, but they need to be aware that they may be called upon at one point to take a stand on issue X or issue Y. So we go through everything with a purpose lens. We don't let purpose kind of derail existing strategies, but I think it's important, it needs to be interwoven, right, into the daily key objectives of your mission and vision as an organization.
Thank you. Another question. Historically, in South America at least, the CEOs have been disconnect their preferences and mix them their free time at their daily work. So what would you recommend to the CEOs in South America to make the transition to build an activist CEO without increasing the risk of this issue?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, social media has kind of, and the world we're living in today has really infused the personal with the professional. And actually, just from a communications perspective, and in terms of a lot of work I do, I encourage the CEO or the business leader to infuse the personal with the professional, because it enables them to be more authentic and it enables them to have a unique positioning on certain issues. Now, there's varying degrees you can do that. I'm not asking every CEO to share their Facebook page, but I think it's important to infuse that element, whether it's an issue you personally care about, right? But again, it's important for the CEO to align to the corporate narrative of the organization they're leading, right? So I think, there's a careful balance on the level of personality that you infuse with your professional journey, and us as communicators can help manage that. And that's what we get called to do a lot, actually. And it just depends. I think just going back to Whitney's point, there needs to be a level of authenticity, and that's what it's all about. It's not about purpose washing, right? It's about having that level of authenticity around a certain issue, because that's when it's really going to hold up to an external and an internal audience.
And I'll just add something interesting that we've been seeing from a research perspective, especially in the April, May, June area of 2020, is this push for executives to be a little bit more, again, authentic, but also humble and personable in their communications. Given the world that we're in, we don't want our CEOs to be up here and we can't relate. But what is happening to the CEOs on an individual level, and how can we communicate that authenticity? And we've even seen different companies that have spoken with us on different conferences say, we're not creating a polished CEO video to send to our employees anymore. I'm doing an iPhone video that's me in my living room just having a chat. So even the type of communications that we're seeing is a little bit different than maybe what we would have seen in 2019 or 2018 in terms of how a CEO is connecting, specifically with employees, but also the outside world and other stakeholders.
Thank you. Very good challenge for our leaders.
Yeah, no, just one thing I wanted to add. Oh, sorry. I wanted to add one thing, and sorry, Whitney, can you stop sharing your screen, because apparently people can't see our faces. Great.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, great. So just one thing to add to that point as well. This is not a criticism of the organization, but Jeff Bezos, when he announced a huge $1 billion fund for climate, right? That was an amazing thing. But social media and media came down and criticized because it was not authentic to the company or his personal, in the values that he's been talking about, right? It seemed to be purpose washing. Now, I'm not here to say whether it was or it wasn't, but that's a prime example of someone trying to do good around something, but getting criticized because it's not seen as being authentic.
Thank you. Another question. When we think on activism, as you told us, we start, personally, I think in NGOs, right? Because of an NGO. So the question is, how do you balance activism with the core business of every business?
Well, I think the definition has changed. I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, a decade ago, it was Ben & Jerry's and Patagonia and everyone else. Now it's not as black and white as that, right? The term CEO activist has been coined for a purpose. I'm not advocating banners and placards and walking the streets, right? But it's about how a CEO can make a difference as a leader of a company talking about certain hot topic issues.
Yeah,
the definition has changed.
Exactly. We're not expecting CEOs to scale a building with a banner, but we are, there is this level of what are the tools that I have on my table as a CEO, whether that's my supply chain, whether that's my marketing power, whether that's my peer set and how I can influence them, and kind of understanding that's activism. How can I use these levers to create change in a big way?
And we've seen that a lot, and I think the Business Roundtable announcement last year of the leading corporates coming together and advocating for purpose, kind of turning the Milton Friedman model on its head, right? We've seen Larry Fink every year in his annual letter to shareholders talk about purpose and leadership. This is kind of the godfather of capitalism talking every year. So, that's seen as being an activist CEO, an activist leader.
Okay, thank you. Just because of time, I will make the last question. Okay. So the question is, according to your experience, what type of leadership do you think will be privileged to build reputation and a strong brand connected with what the stakeholders are waiting for?
Sorry, can you repeat that question, Alejandro?
What kind of leadership will be privileged to build reputation and a strong brands connected with the new expectation of stakeholders, all stakeholders?
Yeah, no, I think this goes back, right? And I'm sorry to keep hammering this point home, but it's authenticity. You need to, in order to ensure that you have the interconnectedness with the corporate narrative, with the shareholders, your employees, potential consumers, you need that level of authenticity and to connect it all, right? Without that level of authenticity, it's going to fall apart. People are going to start seeing through what you're doing and what you're saying as a business leader. But, I think as we approach the new normal, there's going to be more of this. But also, I think CEOs are on a journey as well, right? We're all in a collective journey together because we are navigating this time. And you guys in your market in Chile have been going through this a little longer. And, perhaps you're a little bit different from 2019 to 2020, right? And you'll be even more different in 2021. I think it's a journey that we are collectively on. And that's why it's important for, folks like your audience here to lean into their communications experts, to lean into their strategists a little bit more to help them navigate these waters, to navigate the normal, not the new normal, the normal. Great.
Okay. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Whitney. We have enough time. See you next time. Muchas gracias a todos por haberse conectado y nos vemos en la próxima. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.